I'd like to welcome our final panelists of the day to the stage. The AI Literacy Lab is a new Northeastern initiative to improve communication and understanding in the age of AI by bringing together technologists and the media. It's led by faculty from Northeastern's Corey School of Computer Science and its School of Journalism, along with two veteran journalists who are here today. Joanna Weiss, a political contributor and former Boston Globe columnist, and Michael Workman, a former Boston Globe design director. They're joined by Dan Lothian, an executive producer of the PRX show The World and a former CNN correspondent. I will turn it over to you. Please come to the stage.
Thank you so much. Thanks for still being here today. It's been a fascinating day. Can you hear me? All right, it's been a fascinating day hearing from practitioners and from scholars and researchers. So we wanted to end it by sharing the view of the general public. As Groom mentioned, we are here to, we came about after ChatGPT was sort of unleashed on the world, and there was an explosion of headlines and exuberance and news articles and TikToks and YouTube videos and a lot of hype and a lot of fear and a realization that the public needed to be better informed about AI. And so that's why we launched this initiative, and one of the first things we did was do a poll to try to take the temperature of the public and get a sense of how Americans are seeing AI.
Yeah, so just to sort of introduce the poll, you can see here, it's called How Americans See AI, Caution, Skepticism, and Hope. And this is a poll of 1,000 Americans, 18 and older, and it was done in August of 2023. And it's a nationally representative sample in terms of age, gender, household income, and race. And so what we're going to do now is just sort of go through some of the key findings and sort of have a conversation about them. So,
yeah, so we talked about this a little bit earlier. Several of the speakers have talked about a lack of trust. So what we found was consistent with a lot of other polling that's come out that showed that the public really is concerned, has a lot of anxiety about the AI technology and the people who are creating it.
And I think, within journalism, if you look at if you look at all of the various different polls that will rank different jobs, different professions, when it comes to trust in the public's mind, we're like right at the bottom. I mean, there's the whole narrative of fake news and all of what the baggage around that. And so one of the things, even as being in the classroom as well, but certainly outside the classroom, we're always working to do better journalism or improve our practices and be more transparent in order to build the trust, right? And so now you bring in technology and AI, where the biggest challenge is for us on a daily basis deciphering what is real and what isn't. And then for the public that often gets most of its news, certainly of a certain age, from social media, they're seeing all kinds of things. And mixed in with some of those things are either false narratives or photos or videos that AI has been a part of. And so I think you have this sort of general sense of lack of trust around the technology. You layer that over journalism, you can imagine why there's a huge mountain to climb for our readers and our listeners.
yeah, so just to quickly go over, we talked about 55% don't feel confident that AI will be developed responsibly, 64% say the government should regulate AI, and 56% don't think public companies should be left to themselves to determine standards for AI.
So using the technology, this was really surprising to me, actually, because when ChatGPT first came out, I don't know how many other people like me played with it. I was like, write a song about butter, and it did, and it was like pretty good for a song about butter. But I was surprised to see, I don't know if you were too, Dan, that 68% of the public haven't even experimented with an LLM like ChatGPT. 85% haven't experimented with an image generating program.
I wasn't as surprised myself. I've experimented, but just on the edges. Because even just now within our own newsroom and within our organization, we are trying to figure out, okay, what are some guidelines that we can put in place? And in these conversations, there's a younger audience. There are younger staffers who they know a lot more. They've used it to write papers for research, different things like that. But then of a certain age, it's scary. You got to help me. You got to provide some guidance on how to use this, how to use it responsibly. And so, yeah, I'm not a surprise of a certain age group. It's still a mystery. It's still scary. And there's that skepticism, but also I think there's something there that can make my work a little easier, that can take some of the grunt work out of our job, but they still haven't figured out how that will work.
Yeah, I think a lot of education to be done.
Yeah, we have some points about that also coming up in the poll. So.
Yeah. Optimism and pessimism. So yeah, 52% of Americans think AI could take away their jobs. 44% think it could extinguish all of humanity. There were a fair amount of headlines on that front. But 67% think that it could make their daily lives easier.
Right. And I think, those numbers, probably, although this is not an accurate assessment of it, but every time some new technology comes around, there's probably the same kind of sentiment. When you have CDs that came on board, or when you went from analog to digital. I just remember growing up in a radio station, every time some new technology came along, people talked about how, this is going to be the end of our jobs. You don't have to spend all this time degaussing tapes now. Like, who's going to do that?
I used to tape. How old I am. I used to splice tapes
if we go
together
way back, it's reel to reel, where you
Yep.
had to splice it together. And what about the people who have the expertise in splicing tape? And I had expertise in. I could do the get it just right and splice it. So you always hear this, right? But it really is just a matter of getting educated on what it can do to help your job, or help you in your job, and maybe do away with some things that you didn't realize you didn't need to be doing.
So we asked our respondents a whole bunch of different questions, or gave them a whole bunch of examples of uses of AI and asked them to judge whether they were reasonable or unreasonable, good or bad for society. So this is just a small sample of what we found. We asked, are these reasonable uses of AI? 29% said it was reasonable to use AI to write a college essay. That's a sort of, I know, a scary hot topic in academia. 60% said good, fine, use it to write a resume. 44% said use it to write a newspaper article. That's a very, in the journalism field, using AI to actually compose articles is a very controversial topic.
It is, and we've had conversations about this and how much should you use. And I think sometimes it's great, and what I found some people are doing is using it to kind of generate ideas about an approach that you might take to a story. I think that's fine, right? Here's the topic I want to explore. Help me think about some approaches that I can take. I have a problem if you're going to let the AI article guide your reporting or guide your story, right? I think it can help you think about it from a broad sense, but at least at this stage, I think it's important. What's great about reporting is that you are going out, you're talking to people, you are being led from one interview to the next, from one piece of fact to the next. You're uncovering things, and there's nothing that will take the place of going out on the street and doing your own reporting and then putting it all together in an article, rather than just go out there and call everything that's in the internets of things and put together an article for me.
So we asked people what they would be comfortable with. These are some kind of near and far future scenarios. There are places where you can, I've been told, get public transportation without a human conductor, but our respondents were not interested in that. Surgery without a human around, not a lot of interest. A little more interest with someone helping you pick out clothes in a retail store.
That makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Something that's kind of benign. If they pick out something that doesn't work, who cares, right? If it works for you, then that's fine.
Somebody
so
yesterday,
that
I
makes
believe you're sitting here in the front row, said, I'm amazed that 15% would do surgery without a human. And I think that's that's a very good point.
Yeah, that would be a little scary.
But it goes again to trusting the technology. What do you trust the technology to do? If it's something that feels like it's personal, private, human safety, I think there's still a huge gap. Even though there is laser-guided surgery, the technology is used in the health field. But again, I think perception versus reality and what's in people's minds about what AI is and can do as an entity versus as a tool for humans, there's clearly a big gap in understanding.
I was talking with my son the other day, who's a race car driver, and I was saying, I see people. I went up to a light and someone was in one of those cars that drive themselves, and it was a little scary watching it. And he goes, "Could you ever be comfortable with that?" I said, "Right now, no. But I see in the very near future where I won't care about it. I'm going to hop in a car and the car is going to take me someplace and I'm going to get out and I'm not going to think twice about it." It's just time and watching enough, getting like all of the kinks out of the system, and then I'll come along at the end when it's perfect.
So misinformation, there's broad awareness. There's broad awareness of AI in general. One of the things we found was that most Americans consume news about AI at least weekly, if not daily. And I think with that has come broad concerns and broad understanding of the potential for misinformation. We've certainly seen those concerns in the past week with world events and how easy it is for something to spread very quickly and for people to mistrust the news that they're getting on social media. And then even in the traditional media, people are clearly concerned. This poll was conducted back in August. That many people were concerned about the presidential campaign. When you're covering world events and your reporters are gathering information, how top of mind is this and how do you guide them?
It's very top of mind. In one of our editorial meetings on Monday, we use a lot of social media to help take us to the corners of the world where we aren't, right? And I stress that we cannot just say in this YouTube video or in this whatever TikTok video, even if it appears to be from a credible place, it appears to be, based on everything that you followed that site, that it appears to be okay, that we have to independently verify all of that information because you just don't know. It could be someone who mimicked what you thought you knew and then edits something in there that makes it false. Or, you think back to the war in Ukraine where there was Zelensky's, there was that video that was sent around, manipulated using AI, showing Zelensky asking his soldiers to put down their arms. It was scary how quickly that made its rounds across social media. And one of the challenges I find with this fake, false information with the help of technology is that it's hard to get people to unsee something. It's hard to get them to sort of unremember it. Oh, that thing that you saw and you sent around and 1 million people or 5 million people shared, how do you undo that? It's a lot harder. And so, it's something that we have to think about, especially as we're relying more and more on user-generated content.
I mean, one of the interesting things, too, on the bottom of the slide, one of the use cases that we asked people about for AI was social media companies using AI to actually ferret out false information. And there was a lot of interest in using that. So again, the idea of AI being a tool, the good AI can help ferret out the bad AI is an interesting concept, and I think there's room there.
You definitely need the good AI, right? Because the technology is so good that it's hard to spot with the naked eye. So the smarter that the good AI can get, the easier our job will be in determining whether or not the information that we're getting is real or not.
So a couple final findings that we wanted to share from our poll, and we'll put up a QR code so you can download the whole thing. But STEM versus non-STEM, this is maybe not surprising to the people in this room, that people who either worked in a STEM field or had a STEM background were much more likely to feel positively and to be optimistic about AI. Again, to us, it feels like that is an opportunity for public education, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that you think or see from those results.
I mean, you sort of, you're comfortable with what you know, right? Yeah. And so when new ways of kind of doing journalism come along, if this is kind of our field, and it makes sense with what we know, then we're comfortable in approaching it. When something comes from outside, sort of strange to us, it's a little bit more like, I have to first wrap my head around this before I can decide how this is going to play into my job. And so, and I think you can, probably put that over any kind of industry out there. What you know is easier to adapt into something different within the realm versus something coming from the outside.
And finally, this was a surprising finding and something that I think we'd love to study further and figure out if we can replicate, which is that women were more skeptical of AI in a statistically significant way than men. And women were less likely to believe that AI would be developed responsibly than men. I could spin off a whole bunch of theories, but I'm curious what the men beside me think.
Yeah, I want to be careful with that one.
Who wants to take that?
No, I don't. I mean, I think women are right to be more skeptical of things. Sometimes, and I know maybe I'm making some broad generalizations here, but it's the guy who will just say, yeah, let's take the leap off the cliff. And my wife, who always will eventually leap off the cliff with me, but first she'll go up to the edge and say, I want to make sure that water is deep enough for me before I jump. And so, yeah, it makes sense, right? From that seed of safety, but still risks taking, but making sure that you're minimizing whatever that risk is, and that kind of falls, at least in the relationship I have with my wife. So.
Well, that's what we have, but you're welcome to scan here and download the full report. We also have the top line questionnaire available online, and thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thanks Chief EAI for having us, and
Thank you.
we're hoping to do some more conversations in the future.
Sure.